welcome to the Strategy Edge. I'm your host, Kirtana Venkatesh, and today we have with us a very special guest, Christopher Roberts, who is a renowned brand interventionist and expert in the Net Promoter Score growth and also the managing director of Engage Strategy. More importantly, he is the author of a thought provoking book titled 10 Reasons Why CX NPS Programs Fail. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Keithana, for that introduction.
Chris, you've published this very insightful book, 10 Reasons Why CX NPS Programs Fail, and it has already been making waves in the business world. It was also featured recently as the number one among the top 10 CX books to read in 2023. So I'd like to start by asking you, why did you decide to write 10 Reasons Why CX NPS Programs Fail?
Yeah, so just to give you a bit of a background, we've been doing NPS for like 15 odd years, and we've got experience across 20 plus industries, multiple brands, and I would love to say that I did this to out of inspiration to help people, but quite fundamentally, and it saddens me to say, it was born out of sheer frustration. And when I say it's born out of sheer frustration, what I mean is that it is obvious at the end of the day when you look at customers. Customers are the ones that decide to buy from you. They are the ones who decide to recommend you to other people, and they are the ones who decide to stay loyal. And each one of these ultimately results in revenue growth. So when you look at the dollar signs, they all lead to the customer, and it's a no-brainer that NPS helps you achieve all of these three things. And when you talk about the money, some of the initial work that was done by a variety of people, kind of Bain and Co., the London School of Economics, they show that loyalty leaders typically grow by 2.6 times the category average. So when I say loyalty leaders, I'm talking about in any category, let's just say insurance within a geographic market or banking. The brand with the highest NPS score grows at 2.6 times the category average, which is amazing. But in addition to that, they also enjoy 15% lower operational costs, which sounds a bit funny because, at the end of the day, it's like, if you want to improve customer service, how is it that your costs are dropping? And the secret is that when you actually listen to customers and take action, especially against, issues that they have, what you end up doing is streamlining your processes, making them more efficient, reducing complaints. And then the other aspect is you have to spend less on advertising because your very own customers are promoting you to other people. Some of our own analysis that we've done when we've looked at customers is that when you look at the Net Promoter Score, methodology, promoters we find are worth at least two times an average customer in terms of revenue when you consider customer lifetime value, and a detractor is minus one customer. And that sounds strange because, after all, detractors buy from you as well, right? But the reason for the negative aspect is the fact that they are the ones that spread negative word of mouth and they stop people from buying from you, right? The third aspect in terms of economics is, net promoter score at the end of the day is a measure of how likely someone is to recommend you to other people. Again, our own studies actually show that when it comes to the purchase influence for a brand or a product, word of mouth from your peers is at least four times more powerful than TV advertising, right? And the second best is kind of product reviews. But when you think about this, it's literally a case of there is just so much money to be made. Some of our clients, as an example, 50% of their sales come from word of mouth. On average, when we check benchmarking, it's like 25 to 30% come from word of mouth. So the benefits are just huge. If you look at B2B as an example, in some of our studies, we found that just a 1 point increase in NPS results in an increase in share of wallet of between 1.25 to 3%. And this is B2B environments where the clients can buy their products and services from more than one supplier.
Right.
So, when I say this, that's literally like a revenue increase, correct? So the money is there, and like one of my ex managers used to say, people are leaving money on the table, which means that there is money to be made, and they're just not grabbing it. After all this, people do surveys, they do NPS because everyone wants a score, but they don't take action. We had this one client, which we had to kind of engage with because the general manager was a friend of mine. But for 4 years, they did net promoter scores and they did not take action. And every time you went to them and you said, "Here's your score. Have you taken any action based on last time's recommendation?" And they said no. And the score stayed the same, more or less. And
And
that is feat, huh?
it didn't drop.
No, it didn't drop. It stayed more or less the same, which is quite amazing because it's a 200-point scale, right? As far as
Right.
net promoter score is concerned, can go from minus 100 to like plus 100. So within a few points, it more or less stayed the same, which was quite astounding. But fact of the matter is, if you don't take action, you don't get any improvement. Having said that, we do have had another client that did the same thing, didn't take action, and their scores went backwards. But that's another story. But the thing that I find interesting is when you actually present results, it's like people have come in to watch a movie, right? So they listen to the whole story, and if the score is good, someone will take the credit for it. If the score is bad, then there are questions raised about the survey approach, the sample size, the this, the that, or whatever. But the biggest thing is that no one takes action, and fundamentally, it's quite simple. Listen to customers, take action strategically. So don't take action on everything, but have a very strategic approach and a prioritized approach to taking action, and your score will go up. There's just no two ways about it. Then what we find is another group of people who are just obsessed with the score. So the score becomes like a KPI, and that's all they're interested in. And that is good, partly, but in a way, it doesn't make a lot of sense because you shouldn't just be focused on the score. You should be focused on the means to achieving the score, right? Because the NPS is an end outcome. You should focus on the means. Um, then I suppose the next thing is that, and I cover this off in the book in a lot of detail. It's easy to understand, right? I mean, everyone out there is a consumer. So when you go and you say, "Oh yeah, how likely to recommend," and this results in increased loyalty and word of mouth, people understand it. But just because it's easy to understand because you're a consumer doesn't mean that it's easy to execute,
Right.
because there are two things about it. One is wherever you are, you've got to create more experiences and propositions, not just experiences, but propositions that are worthy of recommendation. And that is not easy. Increasing satisfaction is relatively easy, but creating propositions and experiences that are worthy of recommendation requires a lot of effort. And the second part of the equation is when you look at promoters, they are not people who say, "Oh, well, their contact center service is great, but their products are not that good," or "Their product is great, but they charge too much." Everything has to be good. So it's a transformative discipline that has to be organization wide. So I've touched on a few topics I've done in the book, but this is what is frustrating. So when I looked at it, I thought, look, maybe if I write a book about 10 reasons why these things fail, it'll help businesses because this is relevant to a corner shop, a coffee shop, a startup, to a large corporate, right?
Right.
All levels, I've seen people not doing the right thing, and from what I've seen, around 85% of these programs fail. So I wrote this book. It was born out of frustration, like I said at the beginning, but I hope it helps businesses out there.
Absolutely. So, can you share with our listeners what are the top three reasons that you think CX or NPS programs fail, as you've outlined in the book? Of the 10, what are the top three?
Yep, absolutely. So, as you know, in this podcast, we're going to cover a lot of these topics in the book in a lot of detail, but I'll share the top three reasons. And the first reason is fundamentally this: it's understanding economics beyond the transactional value. So most businesses look at a sale value. You buy a widget, it costs $100 or 1,000 rupees or whatever, right? And that's the sale value. But when you look at the full economics, you have to factor in a few things. One is obviously the transactional sale value of what they buy from you. The second thing you need to consider is if you have multiple products, how likely are they to buy additional products from you, right?
Right.
So that share of wallet, the internal share of wallet aspect. The third aspect is how loyal are they going to be? So especially if you're in a service business, anything from a coffee shop to an insurance company, how likely are they to come back and keep coming back to you? And the last thing, which most people forget, so my background is in banking. We used to do all these things like loyalty, share of wallet, cost to serve, and so on and so forth. What we never did was the economic value of word of mouth. Okay, so even as a business, we have some clients who, from a revenue perspective, are low value clients. But when I look at the business they've brought in through word of mouth, they are massively high value. And that bit, understanding the economics so that you manage your business accordingly is a huge factor. Now, once you understand economics, and more importantly, sell the economics internally, you will get executive engagement. Now, executive engagement is massively critical, and you can't just have lip service for this. They have to be 100% behind it because staff watch executives like, with an eagle eye. Whatever the executives are interested in, staff are interested in. So, if the staff are not 100% behind your CX program, it's going to fail. Now, the executive are not going to get behind something that doesn't have economic value. So, these two are really interlinked, right?
Right.
And the third thing I would talk about is something that often gets neglected, and that is the power of emotion. So, most
Yes.
business people are very pragmatic, very analytical, and very objective in their approach, but they forget about emotions. And if I actually ask you to recall the best ever experience you ever had, two things will come out. One is that you felt a very powerful emotion, like you felt valued, or you felt cared for, or you felt that someone was empathetic to you, or you were impressed, or you were delighted, all these wonderful kind of emotions. And the second thing you'll say to me is that a human being kind of went above and beyond to deliver that emotion.
Right.
And emotions get completely ignored. And when we work with our clients, we actually show them how to determine which emotions are relevant to their business. So plan it, how to measure it with like strategic surveys, but more importantly, how to get the staff engaged in delivering these emotions. Because at the end of the day, emotions have to be delivered. And here's a little trick for the listeners out there. If your staff don't feel the emotion you're trying to deliver, like feeling valued or cared for or delighted even, your customers are not going to feel that. So the bridge between the two is definitely emotion.
Right. Great. Those are very valuable insights, Chris. And it's clear that there's a lot to learn from your book, 10 Reasons Why CX NPS Programs Fail. And with that, we've reached the end of this episode. But in our next episode, we'll be diving into the topic of who is an ideal customer. With Chris, we'll explore the concept of an ideal customer and why it's crucial for businesses to define and understand them. We'll discuss what it takes to attract and retain these ideal clients. And Chris, I'm sure you'll share a lot of valuable insights on this fascinating topic.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It is a topic very, very close to my heart. Thank
I
you.
quite know that. Thank you very much, Chris.